Hey folks, Dust Moret here, and I just want to do a quick vlog to talk about the whole move with Devilwalk joining Luminosity Gaming. Obviously, there's been a lot of other NA roster shuffling going on, and I promise I will be doing a vlog about that as well. But I'm honestly just kind of waiting for the dust to settle because, be honest, it's a complete fucking mess right now. Like, one instance you see Elevate picking up Ruru, then a few days later they released Ruru. You know, there seems to be still a lot of shuffling going on based on tweets and comments I've been hearing when it is in regards to Elevate and Tempo Storm and the moves that those two teams are still trying to make and figure out. So I kind of want to wait for the dust to settle before I talk about that. It seems like Nylum just picked up Desi, and that's kind of a done deal. And they're not making any other changes, at least so far. I haven't heard anything. So maybe I'll talk about Nylum in a video soon with the whole Desi thing, though I think I've spoken on Desi a lot, so there's not much to say there again, I don't think. But I will do kind of another NA roster shuffle video when everything else is cleared up. But this particular move got so much attention and so many comments and so much criticism and all this other mess that I just kind of wanted to immediately jump in and kind of give my take on it, because this is kind of, I guess, one of the more shocking moves that we've seen so far. Yeah, so I just want to talk about it basically. So first of all, let's talk about Luminosity a little bit, right? So in their online performances recently, so in the ESL ESEA Pro League, in that league they took third place in regular season. They went 16-6. Basically, they lost to Cloud9 and Keystars twice, so that's 4 of their losses. They did lose one kind of game to Mousespaz that was kind of it's kind of iffy. And I know they traded games with CLG, I think, but I think they actually beat Liquid just straight up both times they played against them, if I remember correctly. Let me think about that. Yeah, I think they did beat Liquid both times. So that they had traded map with CLG, so that's one of their losses. They lost to Mousespaz in overtime on Kaba, which was kind of disappointing, but that's really the only disappointing loss they had. So they had like one disappointing game out of 22 games in the regular season, basically. All the rest of the losses are like, they lost to really good teams, and they beat some really good teams as well. So good performance there, okay? You look over at how they performed in the CEVO MLG Pro League. They had 6 wins and 6 ties, no losses. Yeah, some of their ties were a bit disappointing because they were the teams you think they could just straight up beat, but otherwise they didn't lose anybody, and they had some wins against some good teams. So once again, pretty decent performance. Could have been a bit better, like I said, convert some of those ties into wins as well, but otherwise, all in all, still good. Still qualified for both LAN events is really the point, right? They also played some other tournaments in the NA scene where they just kind of lost to some top teams like Liquid in instances and different situations like that. They didn't really lose anybody they shouldn't lose to, I guess is my point. They lost like one map to one team they shouldn't lose to in all the regular season play. So it was a pretty good performance overall. And yes, it is quite true that NAF was their top fragger in many of these cases, where he had the highest ADR, had kind of one of the best KDs on the team. So yeah, certainly he is like a high-rated fragger. However, I would say, because listen, everyone has to just be grasping onto online performances to make, this opinion that, oh, Nas their best fragger, how could you get rid of him? That's such a stupid movie. He's such a good player. They have to just be judging this based on online play, because he hasn't gone positive in a single LAN match in his career in CSGO. At least when it comes to this year, 2015, with like Liquid and Luminosity and some of the stuff I guess whenever he was playing with Denial, like in ESEA LAN, he probably did do pretty well there, yeah. But all them games he's played with Liquid, and all the games he's played with LG on LAN. Granted, it hasn't been very many games. He's been playing against really good teams, but he's gone negative every single time. So there's no way people are using LAN performances to make this assumption or to make this conclusion. It has to be all based on online play. And that's fine, because short of like one game in ESCA, the other 21 games he played quite well. He was, top fragging or near the top, dropping 20, 30 kills, doing really well. So yeah, I will admit his online play looked quite impressive in the ESL ESEA Pro League, and it wasn't much different in CEVO. But I would say that Anger wasn't too far behind on the board in those situations. Neither was Pit. Those two both still fragged quite well. Peter also wasn't too far behind with the op, in my opinion, when you look at the stats. And even Lex, who seems to get the most criticism, had a positive KD, had a decent ADR, and he's playing like a more supportive role. So it's not like he is going to go off and be crazy. It's not even his job, So here's my point, I guess I'm trying to make with all this is if you're really just judging this off of online play, then, and you compare it to on LAN play, like the the performances of Anger, Pit, and Naf are all pretty similar, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, Naf may look more flashy, more explosive, but Anger and Pit also playing quite well. So yeah, they lost a little bit of fragging power getting rid of Naf, but you have to also understand some of the issues that Naf brought to the table on this team. Now, I'll already just kind of mention that I'm not going to sit here and go into heavy detail because I have a level of respect with Buyaka and Luminosity as a team to where I'm not going to sit here and air out dirty laundry. They tell me things, but I don't share them. You know, there's a respect there. But what I can tell you is that while NAF did bring fragging power to the team, certainly, he was still kind of inconsistent, to be honest. Like I said, his lane performances weren't that great. When they needed him most against top teams international play, he wasn't quite there. So, you know, but in general, good fragging power, sure, very versatile, you know, young, aggressive rifler, also can op. Yeah, he does have a lot of good traits, right? But he also brings some bad traits. You know, I even heard instances where he used to play with Liquid, where he would have a bad attitude. He would rage. He would become mentally out of it when things weren't going well. He'd lose his composure. That means his comms would be terrible or non-existent. You know, he would mentally shut down. So once things started going bad, he could never come back. You know, he could never keep his composure and make a comeback. And thus, if the team's losing or he's not playing particularly well, he's just going to keep digging a deeper hole rather than climbing out of it. And so all of a sudden, he's just out of the game all of a sudden just off of like an initial bad start or whatever. Now, granted, this is not a unique trait to NAF. Many people suffer with holding their composure, and many people would also get upset when they're losing. No one likes to lose, right? So you can't blame them for those things necessarily, but the extent at which he allowed those feelings to affect his game and affect his team was too far in many cases, from what I understand, with the immaturity and kind of the upsetness and just not meshing well with the team. And from what I understand with LG, it was really no different. There were issues with attitude. There were issues with him not listening to tactics, you know. You could even see it sometimes in their comms from the POV streams, how his comms would be limited or non-existent or not good, or how, you know, he wouldn't necessarily follow the tactic, like he would just randomly kind of do something on his own accord. And when you do that, you know, I guess if it succeeds and you make a big play, then cool. But if it doesn't succeed and doesn't make a big play, then all of a sudden one of your top fraggers is out of the round because he tried to do something crazy that didn't work. And because you've done something wrong, everyone else is like kind of lost or isn't able to do their job because you've mixed everything up. You've caused a bunch of confusion, like you've completely ruined the tactic, so to speak. And that's obviously a big problem. So here's the thing. Even if you do bring a lot of fragging to the table, if your attitude is a problem, if your teamwork is a problem, if you're not listening to your in-game leader, if you're not meshing well with the team, you know, chemistry's off, communication's not good, listen, there's only so many things that you can overlook just to get the good fragging. And sure, if only one of these things were a problem, maybe you could overlook it or work on it or try to improve it because the fragging was so good. But listen, it's not like this guy's carrying them on land or something like that to where you can just overlook all these problems just because he's a good fragger. At the end of the day, you know, sometimes the problems, the cons, outweigh the pros. And in this situation, I think that's what was the case. So, you know, you can't just be all up in arms because they got rid of Naf because you think he's their best fragger. Because in all honesty, I really don't think Pit and Anger are too far behind. Peter's Ops probably not even too far behind. And they don't bring all these other problems to the table that Naf has brought to the team. You also don't even understand what all the problems are. They're obviously, some of these are private matters that'll never be shared to the public that you'll never know. You just have to trust that there were some issues there, some clashing there, maybe some tension there that was not solvable. And so therefore it was better to lose out on some fragging in order to, I guess, improve the overall team environment, so to speak. And I'll just kind of leave it at that because I don't want to get into too many details. I'm not here to bash the guy or rage on the guy or like, you know, plaster him with this bad name or whatever. You know, that's not what my goal is. My goal is to try to help you understand from maybe from your perspective where you see, you know, all this online play, all this crazy stuff, but you don't fully grasp what's going on behind the scenes, behind the curtain. And I just want to help you better understand why there could be some reasons there why you still might want to get rid of someone, even if they are like one of your best fraggers, right? And I'll just kind of leave it at that. As far as where NAF will end up, I'm sure he'll end up on a top team soon. Maybe Elevate, because Daps is calling on that team, and Daps and NAF do have a history together, so maybe you could see him go to Elevate. You know, especially since Professor Chaos had to step down from that team, and now Ruru apparently has been dropped, so there's room. I don't know if Roka and Rush will come back to Elevate from Tempo Storm or what's going to go on Tempo Storm. I have no idea what's going on there. Like I said, the Tempo Storm Elevate thing, it's so up in the air right now. They haven't made a final decision. It's been quite a mess. But yeah, I definitely think you could see NAF joining one of those two teams. Or we'll just have to see. Maybe there's something else out there for him. I'm sure he won't be teamless for long. But yeah, we'll just leave it at that, right? Now, I also want to address people talking badly about Lex and saying Lex should have been cut instead of Naf. Like I said, once again, it's not all about fragging. What else does Lex bring to the team? Is Naf going to be a lurker or support player for this team to take Lex's position? No, obviously not. It's not the role that he plays. So it's a role thing. You have to think about it that way. You know, also, Lex, like I said, does help as a captain on the team. His communications, I feel, are probably much better than Naf's. He can do different support roles, and so it's not like you need him to be a heavy fragger. Like, he shouldn't be your heavy fragger. That should be like Anger, Pit, Peter. You know, those should probably be the three main fraggers on the team, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, Naf, you know, added to that, certainly. But if he brings all these other problems, then you just have to kind of sacrifice that, right? We've already addressed that. I'm not going to go into it again. So I just don't see the reason. And even if you look at these LAN performances, it's not like Lex was bottom fragging or something like that. In fact, when he played at the CEVO Season 6 LAN, he was one of their better players performance-wise before they made all the roster moves. Then when you look at this particular LAN, he wasn't even the bottom fragger at this LAN. You know, that when they played against Virtus Pro and lost 16-4 on Cobblestone, and when they lost to Envious on Dust 2, I think it was 16-7. Yeah, 2 one-sided losses, but no one performed particularly well, including Naf. And Lex wasn't even the bottom fragger. So you can't just sit here and, like, you know, try to scapegoat Lex for, you know, LG's problems and why they're not successful. Because if you really think that that's the biggest problem LG has, is like Lex's fragging ability, then you're like horribly mistaken and not paying attention. There's many other problems with this team, with some of their star players not performing well on a consistent level. Maybe issues tactically, or where their tactics aren't quite up to snuff. Not that they don't have tactics at all. They actually have some pretty cool plays I've seen on Cash and Mirage T-Side and some of their North American Online League play. They have some cool twists and adjustments to the standard meta, like with their A executions on Mirage. They have some cool little tweaks they do to them to make it look different, or to make it play out differently than what you might expect. I don't want to give away their plays before lands, but I watched them play. I've watched their demos, and they do have actually some pretty cool T-Side stuff, but it could be better. It could be improved upon. That's for certain. It's certainly not up to snuff with some of the other teams in the international scene. So you can always improve your tactics. So yeah, I think that could be an issue. Like I said, I think some of their top players have had issues performing as well as we're used to seeing them play. Anger for a while has had issues really performing as well as you're used to seeing him. I know he can do it. I'm not going to call this guy an onliner. He's definitely not. When you look at what he did with Complexity and iBuyPower at ESEA LAN events, he definitely has potential to be a very strong LAN player. Obviously, his online play is unreal. He's got good aim. He's a good aggro rifler. So yeah, I think they need more production out of him on LAN, and I think he would even admit to that. You know, Pitt is a very big fragger for this team. Not only can he be an aggressive rifler, help entry, help take things like he does quite often on T-sides actually, but he also can be a big support player. You especially see this on rotation positions, like Dust 2, for instance, the way he plays that rotator A position, setting people up with nades and all this different stuff. Very smart, very team-oriented. He has an important role as not only a fragger, but to be a kind of a supportive player at times when he needs to be. So you need more production out of him as well. Peter's op, we've seen that can be a very big tool. You know, everyone remembers how he kind of had that big carry game with CLG when he played for them at Aspen against LDLC. We've seen him had some other big games with the op as well. When he was playing with CLG, he's had some big games even with this team in online play and such. But, you know, so far, the one LAN we've seen him play, it wasn't quite as good. So we get more production there. It's not Lex. Like, come on, guys. There's so many other things that need to be improved to help LG before you start trying to attack that guy. It's just because it's so easy, because he's the one bottom fragging or something. People used to do the same damn thing to Sean Gares, but now no one does that anymore because they've seen the POV streams and they see what else he brings to the table. Now, I'm not saying like Lex does what Sean Gares does for Cloud9 to LG. That's not what I'm saying at all. Please don't take it that way. I'm just making a point that you can't always just look at because someone's bottom fragging and pick them out and say that's the problem. You know, yeah, getting more fragging out of them would be beneficial. No one's going to argue against that. But there's probably other, maybe even bigger problems. And even if they're not bigger, there's still other problems that could also be fixed and handled to where that one problem wouldn't really be the biggest issue. So I just want to kind of leave it at that when it comes to the whole X thing. Now let's talk about Devilwalk joining the team. I honestly think that this is going to be great. I mean, yeah, they lose some fragging ability because Devilwalk probably isn't going to be this flashy fragger like Naf was for them. But like I said, Naf's LAN play wasn't even necessarily that great, so it's not like they're losing out on a lot of LAN fragging power, to be honest. But they do stand to gain a lot, especially tactically. I don't know if Devilwalk will ever in-game lead for this team. Maybe Peter will still keep doing it. But we obviously know Devilwalk served as a coach for Fnatic for a very long time. During that time, Fnatic became the best team in the world, but they were probably kind of one of the best teams in the world before Devilwalk started coaching them. Well, actually, no, I would say that's probably around the same timeline. Not saying that Devilwalk was the major reason. Obviously the type of skill they've been able to get, the type of play they've been able to get out of Olaf Meister and Krims and JW and even Flesha. They have so much skill on that team. Honestly, Pronak's a good in-game leader. They have a deep map pool. There's many things that made them so successful to be the greatest team in the world. But Devilwalk's coaching certainly helped, I'm sure, helping review demos, helping going over plays with Pronax, the discussions him and Pronax had. I'm sure he definitely had a lot of assistance there. We also know that he had a lot of assistance keeping the team environment right, keeping people, in high spirits and being like a morale booster or a motivator. Now we all, of course, know that Peter does that, right? Like all these famous quotes from Peter, "This is our time, everything's fine, let's go, blah, blah, blah," all this stuff. Like we know he's a very positive guy. So I don't think they were really lacking on that department for LG, but Devilwalk can certainly add to that positive environment with his own positivity. He also, I think, like experience coaching and reviewing demos and coming up with tactics. He can do that exact same thing for this team. So like I said, even if he's not the in-game leader, maybe he can kind of be like a player and a coach, like help coach the team as well as being a player on the team and like a support role position or what have you. So I think tactically is one of the things that LG could use work with, because they do have some pretty cool tactics, but a lot of the time I felt like they just kind of hit sights and just hope that Anger, Naf, and Pit as a trio could trade effectively to open up the site. And that's what they relied on a lot, was just kind of these heavy execute battles where they would just try to, like I said, just try to out-trade their opponent, or these pick battles where they would hope their entry fraggers, their aggressive riflers and stuff could find picks, or Peter's op could find picks. So I think that they will add a lot tactically to the team. I think that's the most important impact and one of the biggest things that will help this team. Maybe with Devilwalk's coaching, getting people in proper positions and having better tactics, maybe you can get better production out of people like Anger, out of people like Peter, out of people like Pitt. And then all of a sudden, you're making up for that fragging power you supposedly lost by losing NAF, because people have a better system to work in to be more productive or what have you. Or maybe like if players are having mental blocks, like maybe Devilwalk can be helpful coaching them through those things. I mean, apparently a lot of the Fnatic players in many interviews they had spoke very highly of how Devilwalk helped them through stuff and helped the team mentality. So maybe it's just some of these players need to work through some things mentally or whatever, and Devilwalk can help assist there as well from like a coaching role, but also, like I said, obviously as a player. So I think this is overall a very positive mood. I think they're sacrificing very little fragging potential overall on the team when they already still have 3 really good fraggers, even with NAF gone, to having a lot brought in tactically, to have a lot brought in the overall team environment. I think Devilwalk's probably going to be a better team player, a lot more maturity, a lot more experience. I mean, this is a good move, folks. It's really cool, too, because this is the second time this particular team has made a move bringing in a European player. And it's only the 3rd European player that's been brought to an NA team, in the history of CSGO, and the first time since Lurpus joined EG, which was like back in 2007. So, this is the first time in 7-8 years that we're seeing Europeans join North American teams. That's really, really cool. And this even kind of goes back to a video that Risk made on his YouTube about like the European brain drain that North Americans bringing over like Europeans. And that's true. Like, this is a great mind from Europe, and Devilwalk as an analyst, a caster, a coach, everything, helping out an NA team when it comes to playing CS properly and having good tactics and strategy. And I think that was like a cool thing that Risk said, and his YouTube deserves more viewing, by the way. I just want to throw that in there randomly. Like, you should really check out his YouTube. He has really cool videos on there. This is just one of the things that I saw on there that kind of spoke to me. So yeah, I think this is just overall a positive mood. I think the hate is unwarranted. I think much of the criticism is unfounded or just basically concluded on via misunderstandings or misconceptions or just plain shallow analysis of the situation. Obviously, you're not working with the same information that I have when it comes to like inside information and things like that, which I'm sure if that inside information was released to the public, then you would have a better time understanding it if you see this as negative. But obviously, we're not here to air out people's dirty laundry or bash people. We're just here to discuss pros and cons, and whether the pros outweigh the cons. And I think this situation, it was concluded that NAF's cons outweighed the pros, and the things that Devilwalk could bring to the table would help out the team substantially. And I will also say that every step of the way, Luminosity has made improvements to their team. Their initial roster change, bringing in NAF, Peter, and Pitt, helped the team based on how they were when we saw them at like SEVA Season 6 LAN and ESEA Season 18 LAN. That was a roster improvement. This, to me, is another improvement. So they're moving in the right direction. Now, are they going to be a top team in NA tomorrow? No, absolutely not. They still have a long way to go. But they're definitely like a top 5 team in NA. They're definitely a LAN, contender, a playoff contender next season of ESEA ESL if it's the same format. Same thing with SEVO. They're going to be a contender there as well for the SEVO MLG lands. I'm sure they'll be contenders for other NA events, maybe even eventually get something internationally going. So yeah, I think they're moving in the right direction. I even wrote an article about their history and their players more in depth. If you want to learn more about that, I'll link the article in the description. I just didn't want to go too heavy into it this video. But I'm just going to leave it at that. Hope this kind of maybe gives you some more information and makes you see it a different way. Definitely a cool move, a good move. I think they're moving in the right direction with this for sure. I don't want to go too much further because I would be rambling, so I'll just cut it now. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you enjoy, follow and subscribe for more. Thanks a lot. Like I said, there'll be more NA Shuffle videos coming soon once everything kind of clears out. Don't think I haven't been paying attention or I've forgotten, because I know you've been used to seeing me making vlogs every time like a move happens or like big news in the NA scene comes up. I'm just waiting for everything to kind of settle down, everything to be a little bit more solidify, because last time an NA Shuffle happened, I kept making videos over and over again, and something would change immediately after I made one, and then it would have made my old video obsolete. And so I just kind of want to wait back this time for a while, wait for it to clear up, and then approach it. So be on the lookout for that later as well. But without further ado, have a good one. Signing out.